Hey everyone, I'm John at Roadkill Incorporated. So it's been an unusual couple days. My friend Joel visited from Illinois and we took on a bunch of various retro projects, some successful and some not, and it was a lot of very odd, weird items. Let's dig in. I found this unusual Atari 130XE on eBay a few weeks ago. As you can see, it's either painted or has a replacement case. Plus, they replaced the Atari badge with one for a company, Private Cable Systems, and on the back it has a 5-volt power mod and also a mysterious switch. Well, I missed out on that listing, but shortly afterwards, this one came up from the same seller, basically the same thing except black and minus the badge, so I grabbed it. It's not like I need a 130XE, but the idea that maybe it has interesting mods was too much for me to overlook. So the power seemed a little flaky to the touch, but it otherwise works fine. I tried the switch, but there was no discernible difference to how it powers on either way. I predicted it enabled an internal memory expansion of some type, but I ran the command that shows available RAM, and on both settings it returned the same amount. For some reason, the cable company replaced the default Atari screws with security screws, with a pin in the center, so they were apparently pretty protective of whatever they had going on inside these computers. It gave me the chance to unpack my brand new iFixit driver kit, which of course has everything you could possibly need. We got it open and Joel determined the 5-volt power mod was a little sketchy, so he got rid of that, and from then on the power was super stable. There's some bodge wires, and look at this chip. It's a socketed ROM chip piggybacked on top of the existing ROM chip. Obviously something custom, so presumably the switch activates the ROM. No idea what it does though, or what CG 2.0 is. It might enable an alternate character set, or some software on it that has to be manually called up somehow, or maybe it acts as a driver for some kind of external drive, but I don't see evidence of any of that. Here's where the cabling goes, if that gives you any clues. Checking out some other 130XEs, it appears these cables may be common, but this one is obviously related to the switch. Let me know if you have any ideas. The $189 I paid is way more than my usual $75 or so price limit for a 130XE, but the mystery is not over yet, so it may still be worth it. We had another go at my Bulgarian Apple II clones I got a couple years ago. These are Pravetz Model 82s. To recap, one is working, although unfortunately it got smashed in the mail, and the other is in better condition but has no power whatsoever. We assumed it was just the power supply, which made no hum at all and tested bad, but we tried the other computer's known good power supply, and it still didn't power on, so there's definitely something up with the board. And the board has corrosion too, and probably deeper issues, so it may not be a simple fix and definitely requires taking out of the case, which we weren't filling up to. Oh, and it's hilarious. We repaired a Franklin Ace 1000 power supply I had sitting around, thinking it might be a viable replacement for the bad one, and in its box I found this letter outlining exactly what was wrong with the power supply. It's a letter from 1999, basically informing us of the situation that we are going through right now, trying to replace the power supply, and it explains what was wrong with this power supply that we are rectifying with the part that we bought. So pretty wild to read a 26-year-old letter that is informing us of things we need to know of our current situation. So, if we have trouble, we'll have to give Ralph a call. When Joel is in town, we try to go searching for useless and obsolete retro items wherever we can find them, and this time that led us to Axeman in St. Paul, which, if you've never been there, is kind of hard to describe, sort of a knick-knack store with some of the weirdest things you've ever seen, and they must employ a full-time comedian because there are hundreds of item descriptions like this. I got these super weird floppy disks for 25 cents. There appears to be a disc for every hole on a golf course. No idea what's actually on them, though. Anyway, in the electronics section, we found this for $30. The brand is Mediaform, and it appeared to be a CD duplicating device, model CD-5400L. I noticed on the back that it looked like a computer, probably more or less an ordinary computer outfitted to act as an appliance. Anyway, Joel has a friend wanting to bring a CD duplicator to VCF this year, Vintage Computer Festival, since apparently there has been demand for such a device, so we picked it up. My suspicion was right, and it booted up to Windows 3.1 and then auto-ran this CD duplication software. The weird thing was, it didn't seem to recognize a mouse. It has PS2 and serial ports, so we tried both. PS2 mouse support was disabled in BIOS, so I turned that on thinking I'd found the magic solution, but still nothing. So the mouse must require a driver, I guess? Presumably they disabled the mouse so that there wouldn't be a mouse bouncing around in the interface, but it definitely seems like a software issue, and otherwise it's working perfectly. Certainly a massively great deal for $30, especially since Axeman gave us this $5 coupon for spending more than $20. And hey, look at this cool Tandy mouse I found in my mouse pile while I was looking for a PS2 mouse to try out. I thought maybe it was a rare model that's worth something, but I looked it up and not so much. So in my bathroom retro tower that I've talked about many times, I've got a Dismac D8000, which is a Brazilian TRS-80 clone. I bought it for $100 from the original owner who had it as a kid but then moved to the US. Joel and I looked at it a year ago, but we thought we'd refresh our memory. It has an embedded power cable and the end was cut off, so last year Joel soldered on a connector, although it still didn't power on. So we opened it up and that revealed probably the most bizarre internals of a computer I've ever seen. It's got a 2-part motherboard, 2-part power supply, and 2-part keyboard, oddly enough. At first, Joel thought the problem was related to these components on the right, which appear to split the power off and run these power outlets, but he bypassed that, and it still didn't succeed in getting power further into the system. It did register something on the TV, you know how the video will flicker letting you know it sees something, but there was no discernible image, so Joel concluded the problem is probably this crazy bright orange capacitor. Maybe we'll have to get a replacement at Axeman. They actually had a shelf dedicated to capacitors very much like this crazy thing. Oh well, maybe we'll look at the Dismac again next year. Until then, it's just fine acting as a sculpture in the Roadkill Incorporated bathroom. So I have to admit, I've always had a low opinion of the TI-99/4A, probably because it's the cheapest retro computer you can buy. I mean, you can get them for like $30, and you can get piles of cartridges really cheap too, although most of them are titles that you never actually use, like Multiplication 1. I don't know, I guess the low prices made me think no one wants them, probably because they're not interesting. But I remembered having a couple giant boxes of TI-99 material that I bought for $100 a while back and never tried out. Look at this, 3 computers, tons of games, power adapter, and 2 speech synthesizers. It took a while to get them working on the TVs, but once we did, they were actually way better than expected. Reasonably high resolution, lots of color, and the voice synthesizer was great. Not a bad voice for 1982. Okay, now we are playing Parsec, which is one of the few games that takes advantage of the speech synthesizer. I don't know why, but the speech synthesizer opens up like this. And this is crazy. A cartridge expander that lets you switch between 3 cartridges works perfectly, although I don't quite get why you would want to do this, especially because it only recognizes one at a time. Funny thing, we plugged joysticks directly into it, but apparently, although it has an Atari-style connector, it's not really an Atari-style connector, and you have to use this adapter to plug an actual Atari-style joystick into the thing. But we are using the adapter successfully and playing MASH. It's a unique game. It has a choplifter style mode and then another mode where you do surgery on a wounded person. Alright, we've moved on to the surgery portion of the MASH video game. We're now doing surgery.
Oh, that... No, I think I get it. I keep running out of time.
So I plan on going to VCF this year, and what I want to do is bring all my red MSX computers. I've got to find a way to showcase them adequately, though. I'm trying to find a stand for them that is a piece of art in itself. But another thing I want to do is have a red monitor set up so I can have one MSX machine running at least. I do have a lot of red Atari monitors, but the Atari connector is not really adaptable to composite video or MSX RGB. So that got me looking around, and I found the Memorex MSP-TV1300. I bought it for $250 on eBay, fully working, and it unfortunately arrived totally destroyed due to a bad packing job, so I got it for free essentially. He tried hard to pack it well, but it just didn't have support underneath, and it got cracked on the front and wouldn't power on. Some of the front buttons fell out, so I was hoping the power button was no longer connected to the switch and it would be that simple. Joel and I thought we'd take a look. It's quite a monstrous device. It's just massive. At first, it just seemed like the power button switch was jammed, so Joel got the idea to remove the bad switch and solder it permanently in the on position, but after a lot of disassembly, it became clear the board itself got crunched, and this is probably beyond our ability. Probably an Adrian Black level repair. I know you can buy new CRT boards on AliExpress, or maybe put another complete television inside this thing, but again, that's Adrian Black territory. Oh well, I'll probably put it together and sell it for parts. At least I didn't pay anything for it. And finally, because Joel had success fixing keys on a VIC-20 recently, we thought we'd repair one of my pet keys VIC-20s that has a lot of unresponsive keys. When you get one of these apart, you can see that it's literally a pet keyboard, with the unused sockets for numeric keypad keys simply taped over by Commodore. It took us a solid hour, and there's lots of labor and cleaning involved, but it worked much better afterwards. I hope you liked the video. I know it was a little disjointed compared to usual. Thanks to Joel for all the help. He's an engineer, so he's able to take these projects a degree deeper than I would ever be able to. Anyway, thanks for watching.